We may go a little bit quick, it may get a little bit technical, but it may be one of the most critical discussions that we have in the entire series. So anything that may, if you want to be engaged, if anything that may cause you a distraction, try and switch off from it. Inshallah, tonight we'll be boarding the ship of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So whatever you can do to try and zone into it, this, inshallah, may be the time to board the ship of Imam Hussein. Aflaha man salla ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المأسومين المذلومين واللعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. وصلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا لثارات الحسين يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. I believe to allow these words that we're about to discuss into your hearts and into your souls so that we can traverse together as a society and as a community into the ship of Imam Hussein, a salawat that is deserving of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. My dearest elders, sisters, brothers, salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah. The phrase goes like this: death is a lie because Hussein is alive. Tonight, we try and board the ship of Hussein. All of us have been created in our lives to try and live virtuously, to try and find perfection. It's been the theme of what we've been discussing over the last few nights. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us tools in order for us to be able to try and go and reach perfection. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shared commands with us to tell us, do this, don't do that, and this is your path towards perfection. And in Surah Al-Anfal verse 24, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something very clear to us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirasul إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم وأعلموا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه وأنه إليه تحشرون. O you who believe, respond to Allah and to the Messenger, and when He calls you to that which gives you life, and know that Allah intervenes between a man and his heart, and that to Him you will be gathered. Despite this call from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet, via the Imam alayhim wassalam, some of us still struggle to stand up and say, I have definitely boarded the ship of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Instead of living a virtuous life, which Allah has given us the ability and permission to do with the tools that He's given us, we decide, I don't fancy it. Something stays with us to say, I'd rather choose a life that is full of a dead mind and full of a dead spirit, rather than one that is through all the way to Allah with love, passion, and godliness. And we want to figure out why. Why do we keep rejecting? And when we're rejecting, what are we missing out on? Rasulullah makes calls to us very clear. I call you towards this person, and you'll find Allah. I call you towards this person, you'll find Allah. I call you towards this person, you'll find Allah. We hear the same call, yet we insist on not listening. Why? Our holy third Imam's mission was entirely about Islah, reformation, fi ummati jaddi Rasulullah, in the nation of my grandfather. He had a very simple mission. He wanted to call for what is good and forbid what is evil. Why? So that we can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Umayyads at this point had put chains upon this community and were starting to distort the teachings. And therefore Hussein felt through his divine wisdom disclosed to him by Allah, I need to rise. It was clear in his sermons. He says to his companions whilst he leaves Medina, surely whoever follows me will be martyred alongside me. Whoever does not follow me will not witness triumph. All of the calls of the A'immah and the Anbiya were towards a life of perfection, of happiness, of greatness. And had every single person in mankind boarded that call, we would not see the problems that we see today, which we discussed in our first night together. So why are we ignoring the call? Firstly, we shouldn't be so disheartened that not everyone has replied to this call. This was very much the case of the prophets. Many of them would call and call and call. The stubborn people would reject and reject and reject. Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, for 950 years, he calls, still nothing. All the prophets suffered. The A'immah suffered. The Holy Prophet reported to say, no prophet has been mistreated like I have been. So Hussein's call to humanity and people not listening was not a one-off. This is something that we see. For some individuals, their hearts are so hard, their ears are so closed, as we discussed the other night, that they simply don't want to listen. And at some point, it's sealed. But perhaps the cause therefore relates to us, to me as an individual, to us as a society. And we'll briefly cover three main causes as to why we may not be listening to the call of Abi Abdullah al-Husayn, Sayyid al-Shuhada, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. So why am I ignoring the call potentially? The first reason could be that I'm lethargic, I'm lazy, I can't be bothered. Why? Because when someone tells me do this and it'll get you some reward, I'm like, it's not worth the sacrifice. When my gym instructor tells me, Sadiq, you need to stop eating this food, I'm like, it's not worth it. I don't believe that the value that I will get out of going to eating that food is worth my while. I'd rather enjoy my food. I'd rather go to Karachi and enjoy myself. We can't be bothered. It frustrates us. We don't want to sacrifice. Yet if you look at those who first took on the message when the Holy Prophet revealed it, the hardship that they go through in order to reach perfection is something very unique. Clearly there needs to be some level of struggle. And it was worthwhile. The Prophet eventually goes and illustrates his leadership, his scientific ability, his cultural ability, his economic ability. He's rahmatul lil alameen. He helps every single thing within the creation of Allah reach its maximum potential. It's a worthwhile call to listen to. But we see then under Banu Umayyah, all of this starts to die. There's rapid expansion of the Muslims, and suddenly we start to see a very luxurious Islamic state. People start to cling on to these really beautiful worldly desires, and the more that you cling on to something, the tougher it is to let go. It's very tough to forego a luxury, to want to embrace hardship for something that may not feel material, which is why we said we need to speak about the ghaib first. If you now believe in the ghaib and you now realize that there is something called death, and this death has something that yields heaven, and this heaven is worth your while, and this Lord is worth your while, then it's worth letting go. Hence why Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he leaves Medina, he has a decent sized group. He has supporters in Kufa. But over time, as they start to see what kind of struggle comes with following in the cause of Hussein, he ends up with having just a few in number. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we giving up in this world in pursuit of the next, if anything? Can we categorically point at one or two more things that we've given up since last year? Are even our families in the culture of wanting to give up things for the pursuit of perfection, or are we continuing to add more and hoard our luxuries? Our dear 11th Imam Hassan al-Askari, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He gives us a wonderful advice. For those of you in families and you want to instill a true Tawheedi concept within your family, a true Imami concept in your family, he gives a beautiful advice as to how you need to nurture your family. He's reported to say, God covers some parents with a garment that is worthier than this world and everything that it encompasses, for which all creations look up to them and honor them. And they look at themselves in surprise. So they said, our Lord, how did we attain this when our deeds didn't even earn them? So what it is said, it is by teaching your child the Quran and making him insightful of the Islamic religion. By ensuring that your children have their Quran and Aqa'id side by side. They can't just have one element of it. It's not enough. And if you invest in your family with Quran and belief system, Tawheed, Adala, Nubuwa, Imama, Qiyamah, the strength of those two proponents are phenomenal. We need to train ourselves first and then train our children. How? There's the theoretical approach, which I've been discussing with you over the last few nights, to try and logically and rationally understand why we have a purpose in this life, what we're trying to attain, the ghaib, so on and so on and so on. And there's the practical elements, where you need to nurture them through action. Nurture them through action. You really want that latest Yeezy? Let's not buy it this time around. You really want to go for one more meal? Let's refrain from that. Teach them the concept of struggle at a very early age, and they'll start to realize, with struggle comes value eventually. But you've got to do it to a level they understand. What worked for me is not going to work for my son. What worked for you may not work for your children. And my youngsters, what works for you today may not work for your children if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you children, inshaAllah. But practically, we also need to be smart as parents. We can't say, I'm sad that my son and my daughter is now moving away from the faith when I've just attended a wedding that I shouldn't have. What you teach them theoretically needs to be matched up with practicality. Otherwise, there becomes a problem. Amir al-Mu'mineen reported to say, teach your boys from our knowledge, that through which God benefits them, so that the Mujrites, who at the time were the enemies, don't conquer them. I.e., if you don't teach your children in time, someone else is going to teach them. I'm sure there's many in this room today who can say, my family has been affected by some other ideology rather than the ideology I wanted my children to be brought up on. Why? Face the facts. We were too late. We were too weak. And until we wake up to this fact, they'll keep taking them. The sooner we realize this and take action, the sooner we can take hold of our families again and build this Islamic society and be an active awaiter for our awaited Savior. Al-Fayd al-Kashani commentates on this hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, we must teach in their early days when they can discern between right and wrong, before the opponents tempt them and lead them to misguidance. After this point, when they've reached maybe their teens, their 20s, their 30s, it's too late. You now just pray and pray and pray and hope that they come back. Hence the emphasis on the school that you choose for your child, the madrasa you choose for your child, the restaurants you attend with your child, the discussions you have at the dinner table with your child, the friends that you keep. All of this your child is watching and saying, okay, do I do that? Do I not do that? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? And if they're within an environment of people who are constantly changing and trying to improve themselves for the betterment of something else, then maybe they'll be inspired to do that as well. And maybe they therefore won't be lethargic. The first issue as to why we may not respond to the call is that we could be lazy. The second is unclarity. In the recent times, it started to become a little bit tougher to differentiate between right and wrong. It requires focus. It requires an understanding. And you must differentiate and understand it. Look at the time of Yazid. When Muawiyah dies and he leaves Yazid as his heir, many didn't realize at that point what repercussions were going to come. A trend had been set away from Ahlul Bayt. Comes in Muawiyah, comes in Yazid. Okay, Yazid. People stay quiet. Over time, what transpires? They don't click, they don't realize what's just happened. I'm not using this as a comparison because no individual can compare to the horrific nature of Yazid. But let me say this. Just because your son is on their phone or the daughter's on their phone, scrolling, What are you watching? Oh, there's some influencers. Go and investigate who that influencer is. You may think it's harmless on the face of it, but at some point that influencer takes off their hijab. At some point that influencer encourages immoral usage, dare I say the word, of women. Oh, but it was just a name. It was just a name. People didn't realize the impact of Yazid. They couldn't realize the difference between right and wrong. We as parents, we're lost. We don't know what our kids are looking at. We're like, why are they not coming back to me? Why are they not coming back to the faith? The Imam is demanded by the governor of Medina to give allegiance. He has understanding, he has basira, he has insight. He responds, Governor, we are the household of the Prophet, the core of the message and the harbor of angels. By us, Allah has introduced his message, and to us he will return it. Yazid is a deviant, is an individual that does unlawful things. He is a drunkard and he is a murderer. He has publicly professed his impiety. Someone like me will never pay allegiance to the likes of him. Imagine the children of Imam Hussein watching him. Okay, when it comes to tyranny and oppression and someone unlawful, I will never stand either. Our children see us. No problem, I'll watch whatever thing comes on TV. They're just going to do the same. He's also reported to have said, say goodbye to Islam if the nation is tried with a caretaker like Yazid. Because of this short-sightedness, we get stuck. We become very lenient with our culture. Culture says this, Islam says this. Oh, but culture comes first, apparently. We don't call out issues in society anymore. We don't want to stand for haqq anymore. We want to be passive and quiet. And suddenly we allow the nation to lower itself and lower itself and lower itself, completely blindly, completely naively, until we suddenly panic. We no longer value someone based on their taqwa. You don't ever hear someone say, MashaAllah, Zahra is such an honest lady. You'll never hear someone say, oh, Ahmed is so truthful. We'll just hear, oh, Ahmed's loaded and Zahra's beautiful. Our criteria for who we take our religion from has become so lightweight. It's whatever I want to follow, not for the pursuit of truth anymore. All of this is causing us to miss the call. We're missing it year after year. And the final reason, before I move on, is self-interest. Banu Umayyah were known for their bribery, their discriminatory tactics and economic policies. These guys were incredibly cunning. They would use the public treasury to buy support in order to silence their enemies. And this is how Muawiyah was able to install Yazid as his successor. He would buy the support of local chiefs, give them huge money, wealth, property. When Yazid comes into power, don't say anything, you're now happy, be quiet. And Yazid did something too. He watches his father, he does it the same. He first ascends to the throne. He says to the people, glad tidings on the people of the Levant. Good is still in your midst. There will be a massacre between me and the people of Iraq. As I've seen in the dream 3 nights ago, a ribbon between me and the people of Iraq, a river of blood flowing rapidly. What does he do? He then distributes huge cash to those who are in the Levant. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad does the same thing. He pays people off to side with Yazid. Others didn't side with Yazid, but they still abandoned the Imam. They still got rid of the Imam. What is our stance, my dear brothers and sisters? Is there a repercussion if we don't stand up against Batil today? This is maybe what they were asking back in the day. What happens if I don't stand up against Yazid? Well, in Islam, we believe in the concept of cause and effect. We're like, if I don't take this decision, it's fine, nothing serious is going to happen. Those who didn't oppose Yazid, it wasn't just the massacre in Karbala that took place. For those of you who have studied history, the event of Al-Harra will make some sense to you. This was one of the darkest dots in the history of Islam, dare I say in the history of humanity. The people of Medina started to realize who this guy Yazid was after the events of Ashura. So what did? They tried to rise against him. It got so bad that even the individual Marwan ibn Hakim, Yazid's own cousin and the future Umayyad Caliph, he entrusts his family to Imam Sajjad and he even flees the city. Why? Yazid prepares an army for Medina under the man Muslim ibn Uqba, a known thug, a brute. His command, go and kill the rebels and leave no sanctity pure in the city of Medina. Historians say on the day of Al-Harra, 700 reciters of the Quran were killed. 3 companions of Rasulullah killed. And they attacked the women so much so that they say 1,000 unmarried women were treated improperly. Back then it was just a name. Muawiyah, Yazid, no problem. Don't say anything. If we don't correct our laziness, our lethargicness, our self-interest, our lack of clarity, our inability to identify and differentiate between haqq and batil, and to act with wisdom to ensure our salvation, then we're finished. Khalas, we are done. Being passive and taking a middle approach is not the approach of Islam. It's not good enough. Think about how many community issues have arisen because we haven't taken a stance early on. Why? Because we were lethargic. It won't affect my family. I'll just leave it to another person. I'll leave it to another person. Let the ulama deal with it. Let the ayatullah deal with it. I'll just leave it to Allah. You need to do something as individuals, as families, as societies, as a community, as a nation, as a globe. So many issues we're now having to unpick in society because we were quiet. How long is it going to take for us to change, to wake up? We said yesterday that death was the brother of your sleep. We can't wait. In a beautiful sermon that Amir al-Mu'mineen says, and if we can offer salawat whilst we stand and try and move as far forward on the brother's side and the sister's side, in reverence of Amir al-Mu'mineen, I believe he's worth our time to stand and to offer a salawat. Ala muhabbat Amir al-Mu'mineen, salla ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Please come forward. Sisters, please come forward if you can. On this night especially, let us send a salawat to Medina, that Sayyidah Zahra may feel comfort with, a lady who we give our entire existence for. Ala muhabbati Sayyidatin Nisa al-Alameen Az-Zahra, salla ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Let's zone back in, inshallah. Sermon number 64, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, O creatures of Allah, fear Allah and anticipate your death by good actions. Purchase everlasting joy by paying transitionary things, pleasures of this world. Get ready for the journey, for you are being driven. Prepare yourself for death, it's hovering over you. Be a people who wake up when called and know that this world is not their abode, and so have it changed with the next. I.e., it's time to wake up. Khalas, I'm not going to mention that anymore. Everything that we've spoken about in the last few nights, keep it in the top of your head. Salla ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salla ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Everything we've mentioned, keep in the top of your head. And this is focus time. Even if you forget everything I've just said, don't worry. Forget everything I've just said. Seatbelt time. I'm sure we all agree now, the ghaib exists. Death exists. Heaven, hell exists. Yawm al-Hisab exists, etc., etc. I'm sure we all agree it's time to wake up. For me, and then for everyone else. We need to find a solution for this ongoing laziness. We need to find something that is going to take us to salvation. We need an opportunity. We need something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can cling on to, that's going to take us towards him, that's going to take us towards success. My dear ones and sisters, let me remind you of one very important thing. Every single year, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us this opportunity. Every single year. And you're experiencing it right now. This ship has arrived again. This ship has just docked again. This ship docked last year, and you had this same thought in your head, will I get on it or will I not? Will I get on it? Will I not? The lip service said, I'll get on it. The action said, I was capsized before it even left. The ship of Hussein has arrived to take you, me, our families, our marhumeen, those who come after us, back towards salvation. One of the most righteous companions of the Holy Prophet, known by his eminence Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, narrates from the Holy Prophet, إِنَّ مَثَلَ أَهْلِ بَيْتِ فِيكُمْ مَثَلُ سَفِينَةِ نُوحٍ. The similitude of my progeny among you is that ship of Nuh. مَنْ رَكِبَهَا نَجَى. Whoever boards it is saved. وَمَنْ تَخَلَّفَ عَنْهَا هَلَكَ. And whoever lags behind it will perish. Okay, fine. I need to get on the ship of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. But you know what? As humans, sometimes we can be greedy. Sometimes we don't just want an average ship. Sometimes we want the best ship. We want the business class ship. We want the first class ship. We want the Etihad residence version of the ship. Our dear sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far and Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He doesn't just give us a business class ship. He doesn't just give us a first class. He doesn't just give us a direct flight. He gives us the fastest and most spacious thing that is available. He says, Kulluna sufunun najat. All of us, Ahlul Bayt, are ships of salvation. Illa anna safinatul Hussein awsa'u wa asra. Save that the ship of Hussein is more spacious and faster. The word of Imam al-Sadiq and the word of the Holy Prophet, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. They don't speak out of desire. إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. Except that it is revelation. If Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam tells you that the ship of Hussein is the most spacious and the fastest way to find salvation, to find Allah, then this is Kalamullah directly. The ship has docked and you right now are sat in the docking station. Ayatollah Mirza Tabrizi in Al-Muraqabat, he says it should be known that the door of Al-Hussein alayhi salam is the door of comprehensive mercy, rapid response and approval. Do you want to get on the ship? Sayyid Haddad al-Musawi, one of the great Shiite saints and contemporaries of Allama Tabatabai, may Allah elevate them both, is reported to have quoted from their mentor Allama Qadi, may Allah elevate his status, having said, it is impossible. Listen very carefully. A man who spent years in study and spiritual growth, listen to his words. It is impossible for a human being to attain the station of Tawheed without the path of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam. You want to get on the ship? It's the same ship as last year. It's the same ship as the year before. It's the same ship I've seen dock for the last 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 years of my life. That very same ship, Allah has given me the opportunity once again to get back in. Ya Allah, what did I do to deserve it? I literally ripped my ticket in front of you last time and said I don't fancy it for this year. Allama Tabatabai is also reported to have said that Imam al-Hussein has great attention towards those who are journeying towards Allah in removing the veils and the impediments of the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, we can make the following conclusion, that being a true Husseini makes you a true Tawheedi. Let me go further. In order to be a true Tawheedi, you need to be a true Husseini. And given that the root of our faith is Tawheed, it is necessary for us to be an ishq of Hussein alayhi salam. A deep, infatuated lover of Hussein alayhi salam. Love is not just writing nice letters, poems, matam. Love is all of that plus action. In fact, let me go further. In order to be Tawheedi, you need to be Muhammadi. You need to be Fatimi. You need to be Alawi. You need to be Hassani. You need to be Husseini. You need to be Sajjadi. You need to be Baqiri. You need to be Ja'fari. You need to be Kadhimi. You need to be Radawi. You need to be Jawadi. You need to be Naqwi. You need to be like Askari. And you need to be Al-Mahdi Qa'im al-Ummah. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. You have to be Mahdawi to be Tawheedi. You have to be Husseini to be Tawheedi. You must be. Why? Awwaluna Muhammad. The first of us is Muhammad. Awsatuna Muhammad. The middle of us is Muhammad. Akhiruna Muhammad. The last of us is Muhammad. Wa kulluna Muhammad. All of us are Muhammad. فَلَا تُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَنَا. So do not differentiate between us. We must be every single one of these lovers. And to be a true Husseini, and therefore a true Tawheedi, you need to have such strong roots in your usul al-deen. No ifs, no buts. Not just that, you need to be a staunch Sawmi, a Zakati, a Khumsi, a Hajji, an Amr bil Ma'rufi, a Nahy anil Munkari, a Jihati, a Tawalli, and a Tabarri as well. No compromise. And you must also be a Matimi and a Ziyarati. And my dear brothers and sisters, you must also be a Hijabi. I sincerely pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that in my soul and in our souls as brothers and sisters, that we can correct our social and our physical hijab that is worthy of being Muhammadi, Hassani, etc., etc. Genuinely, it's a prayer from the soul. I realize how difficult it is in this current climate. I was young, I made mistakes. But it's the ship of Hussein that brings you back. It's these nights that bring you back. It's the intercession and the inspiration of Zainab that brings you back, that says, you know what? I'm so infatuated by your morals, O Ahlul Bayt, that I know if I make the decision on this night to correct my ways, you will hold me by the hand, by my soul, and you will take me back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all believe in that ghaib and that judgment day that we've spoken about, right? We say, Allahumma ja'alni indaka wajihan bil Hussein alayhi salam. Oh Allah, I want to be distinguished in front of you. I'm desperate to be distinguished in front of you. Allow me to be seen in front of you like the likes of Nabi Musa, Nabi Isa, like the Ahlul Bayt. How? Bil Hussein alayhi salam, Ziyarat Ashura says. Through Hussein is how we get there. The ship's arrived. It's Muharram. People are getting on. Are you boarding? Or are you on shore? The captain of the ship calls out to you through a sermon that he says on Ashura. He says, woe unto you. Why do you not listen to me and hear what I say while I am inviting you to the way of righteousness? Whoever follows me will be amongst the guided ones, and whoever disobeys me will be amongst the perished. It's a very similar call to Nuh. We know what happened to those who didn't get on the ark of Nuh. Now Hussein is saying, come, let me bring you onto the ship. I want you on the ship. I want you with me. Zainab is saying, come and join my brother on the ship. But I'm lethargic. I can't let go of that desire. I can't let go. Don't worry, let go. This bitterness of that patience that you sense right now, you'll feel the sweetness in Akhirah. When are we going to do it? When are we going to get on the ship? When we get to uni? When we graduate? When we get our first job? When we get married? When we buy our property? When we have our first kid, when our first kid gets to uni, and then we're like, okay, now because they're independent, now I'm going to try and get on the ship off, and then you die. Ya Allah, please, I promise, I was just about to get on. Barzakh exists. There's a barrier between you and Barzakh. It's over. I gave you 50 times to get on the ship. I gave it to you on a plate. You didn't even have to do anything. You didn't even have to pay anything. You just had to come. Why are you not coming? Why? Okay, you decide you want to go. That's it, I'm going. I'm going to get on the ship. Your family hold you back. No, don't do it. Don't do it. They're not going to say it that explicitly. They'll say, no, you don't need to wear hijab. No, you don't need to cut off relations with those people. No, you don't need to do that. No. They'll hold you back in weird ways, but you say, look, I love you. But I love Hussein more. When I say bi'abi anta wa ummi, I'm saying even if your command contradicts my parents, ta'at to my imam, obedience to my imam, that is obedience to Allah. With love I say it to my parents. Fine, you want to come? There's a ticket. There's a very, very, very important ticket to board the ship of salvation of Sayyid al-Shuhada Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. What is this ticket? Of course, you need to be dressed appropriately, you need to have the right mentality, everything, of course. But there's a very special ticket. And that is Ziyarat al-Hussein. From afar, Ziyarat Ashura. From near, Ziyarat Ashura. This, my dear brothers and sisters, is your ticket. And if you get to do it next to the qabr of Hussein, you don't understand how lucky you are. Let me just clarify one thing. His Eminence Sayyid al-Sistani has said Ziyarat Ashura and Ziyarat Jama'a Kabira are among the most important, best and authentic ziyaras from the perspective of the chain of transmissions and texts. Their content is mentioned in many authentic narrations. Therefore, the believer should persevere in reciting them, and they should not pay attention to deceiving arguments of those who pursue their own agendas. Words of His Eminence Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani. His fellow student underneath Sayyid al-Khou'i, the two that were the most knowledgeable in Sayyid al-Khou'i's cohort, His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Wahid al-Khurasani. May Allah grant them both long lives, inshaAllah. Ayatollah Wahid says, according to jurists, he's in his 103, 104 years old. Sayyid Ali Sistani in his mid-90s. Studying, taqwa, studying. Ayatollah Wahid says, according to jurists, may Allah elevate their rank, Ziyarat Ashura is indisputable and is therefore reliable and doesn't even need a chain of transmission. Don't bring this argument of chains of transmission. But if you want to bring the argument, come and sit with me after the lecture. I'll show you the 6 different chains, all of which are accepted, and even if you use your most toughest criteria, at least 2 are accepted. Don't deprive our Shia of Ziyarat Ashura, the ticket to board the ship of Imam Hussein. Let us be amongst those who die with Ziyarat Ashura written on our kaffans, written in our souls, and let it be written in our actions as well, such that our tongue says he didn't just recite it, he enacted it with his hands, with his eyes, with his head, with his hair, with everything that was within him. The great Mufassir, Ayatollah Jawadi Amali, one of the great commentators of all of our ad'iyah that exists today, in Adab al-Thinai Muqarraban, he says that Ziyarat is the mystical presence of the Ashiq, of the fervent, deep lover in the dwelling of the beloved. It is the visitor's passionate encounter of the abode of the visitors, of the visit one. It is the lover's expression of intense love and consideration for the beloved. It is when the enamored one sincerely gives his heart in the alley of the possessor of the heart. The ziyarah is focused just how the line of shahadat is focused. The line of shahadat is what? Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I reject any deity First lecture we discussed khulus, purity. A glass that has a little bit of mud in it and you pour water, I'll say, excuse me, can you go wash that glass and then bring it back to me and then pour water? Why? Because even if you put pure water, it becomes tainted. My soul needs to reject all of that dirt of the other deities. It needs to be incredibly pure, and then I can testify that Allah is there. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tabarra is the prerequisite of tawalla. I need to reject those who had the same venom to kill Hussein in order to accept Hussein. They're two wings. If you only have tabarra, there's no perfection in you. If you only have tawalla, you're full of impurities. You need to clean up our actions and sort out our actions. My dear brothers and sisters, this man Hussein is beyond comprehension. Wallahi al-azim, he is beyond comprehension. In this blessed ziyarah, we say a beautiful line that he is al-witrul mawtur. If you look at your translations, you'll see there's a difference amongst them. It can be translated in different ways. One of the famous translations is the unavenged one so far. True. I'd like to focus on another translation of al-witrul mawtur with your permission, with the salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bear with me on something technical, but it's quite special. Al-witr al-mawtur. Al-witr is fard. It's singular. Man la thaniya la. There is no second to it. It's a singular thing, there's no second to it. Al-witr. A singular, no second. Just one. Al-mawtur. Al-mawtur is an adjective of al-witr. I've got singular, and then I've got mawtur, which comes from the same thing, witr, which also means singular. I've got singular, and I've got an adjective called singular, which describes being singular. I've got singular, I've got an adjective meaning singular, and I put the adjective of singular on top of singular. I.e., this man Hussein can be described al-witr al-mawtur as the exceptionally unique one with a spiritual status like no other. Some scholars will say that all of the Ahl Bayt alayhim as-salam have this witr al-mawtur, and this is absolutely true. Imam al-Rida describes the qualities of the infallible Imam. Al-Imamu wahidu dahrihi la yudanihi ahad. The Imam is unique in his time and none can come close to him in rank. The status of an Imam. Al-witr al-mawtur, the exceptionally unique. This is the maqam of these A'immah. But we may go further and say this, that Imam al-Hussein is a manifestation of Allah's attributes, al-witr. The Prophet, after he speaks about the divine names, he says, innahu witr yuhibbul witr. Surely Allah is unique and He loves the unique. So who's this unique person? Who is this unique person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, that the Prophet says that Allah is speaking about? The Quran tells us in 46:19, وَلِكُلِّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا وَلِيُوَفِّيهُمْ أَعْمَالَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. It says, and for all decrees according to what they did, Allah may pay them back fully for their deeds and they shall never be wronged. If you give charity to someone, Allah will pay you back in due course, correctly. He'll never wrong you. If you carry your mother from Karachi to Karbala to do ziyarah to Imam Hussein and back, Allah will reward you aptly, like no one other can. He will not do anything a disservice. If you give all of your wealth to the faith like Khadija alayha salam, Allah will reward her. No one else can reward her to that level. The important part is the beginning of this sentence. وَلِكُلِّ دَرَجَاتٌ. And for all degrees. None of the A'imma alayhim as-salam except Imam al-Hussein was in Ashura, correct? In terms of the ability to manifest everything, Imam Sajjad was there, Imam al-Baqir was there, but who manifested it? Who was the Imam at the time? Imam Hussein. We also know that there's no day like your day, Ya Aba Abdullah. It is exceptionally unique this day, according to Imam al-Hasan. When you have an exceptional, unique individual faced with an exceptional, uniquely situation, that is a sacrifice that mankind will never, ever, ever see again. Hussein carries out this task. A task that if any of the other A'immah had the opportunity, they would have done the same, but they didn't have the opportunity. In Allah's wisdom, it fell to Hussein. Hussein carries out this task in the most unique way, like no one else will ever do in the history or future of humanity. Allah says, for every single degree, I will reward you aptly and justly for what you've done. Hussein alayhi salam has a very, very unique reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So much so that Salma, the Prophet says to his wife Salma, Allah revealed unto me that verily he, Al-Hussein, has a station which none of the other creation will attain. And perhaps why this is when the Prophet said that when Hussein went to the Holy Prophet, fell at his grave, went into a dream, the Prophet came into his dream, and as he was leaving Medina, he said, وَإِنَّ لَكَ فِي الْجَنَّةِ دَرَجَاتٍ لَا تَنَالُهَا, that there is a special station for you in paradise that you will not attain, إِلَّا بِالشَّهَادَةِ, except that you are martyred. Hussein, this space is unique for you, but you'll only get it when you manifest all of your perfections that Allah has given you on the day of Ashura in Karbala. Hence, Imam al-Hussein, beyond reasonable doubt, is al-Witr al-Mawtur, the exceptionally unique one. The captain of the ship. The ship that you are currently waiting or deciding, am I going to board it today? Or is that desire that I have more important than this? Oh, but I'm not sure, is the ghaib real? We've discussed that. Khalas, there's no more of those aqaidi excuses that we can have. It's time to make your decision. Am I with you? فَمَعَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ لَا مَعَ عَدُوِّكُمْ. I'm with you, I'm not with your enemies. It is this Witr al-Mawtur that gives Imam al-Hussein a maqam, that to the average listener will make us go, this is weird. But to the listeners like us who learn from the Ahl al-Bayt in the Quran, we realize because he has this special station and because Allah is going to reward him aptly, we start to understand some of these concepts that are in Kamil al-Ziyarat. For example, the Holy Prophet, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Sayyid al-Zahra, all of the A'immah, all of the angels, all pray for the Za'ir of Hussein alayhi salam. And this is why Allah even honors the Za'ir of Hussein himself. Imam Sadiq reported to say, there is no one but that on Judgment Day he will wish to be among the visitors of Hussein, because they will see in which the visitor of Hussein is honored and treated by the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Imam Sadiq goes further in another tradition. What is the reward of the one who performs the ziyarat of Hussein? The Imam replies, he is like one who has performed the ziyarah of Allah on his throne. What is the reward of one who performs the ziyarah of any one of your members of the Ahl al-Bayt? They then ask, he is like one who's performed the ziyarah of Allah's messenger. The ziyarah of Hussein is Witr al-Mawtur. It's exceptionally unique. Allahumma rzuqna ziyarat al-Hussein. Allahumma rzuqna shafa'at al-Hussein. Allahumma rzuqna khidmat al-Hussein alayhi salam. You want to get on the ship? You want to jump on? How? A group of students were in the presence of His Eminence Ayatollah Bahjat. Many of you will know this story, it's very famous, but it's just a nice reminder. They asked him, Shaykh, please give us a piece of advice that we may benefit from. Ayatollah Bahjat, whose head was down, on hearing this statement, he raises it. And he says, have you properly benefited from that which you've already learned? What a profound statement. How many ahkam we have in our head that we know we're infringing, but we want more knowledge than acting on this. we know I need to give this up, but I want to get more knowledge. It's good to get more knowledge. Ayatul al-Bahjah said, have you even acted on the stuff that you know already? He continues, Subhanallah, praise be to Allah. All of you pray your daily prayers. All of you pray your daily prayers. He's speaking to a group of students. All of you pray your daily prayers. But have you truly, spiritually and mystically benefited from this act? An act that is the pillar of the religion and a source of proximity to Allah? Do you feel the effects of salah in your souls? It feels like he's speaking to us. I want more, I want more, I want more spirituality. But my prayer is like a joke. If someone were to watch my prayer through the window, they're thinking, is he doing a yoga routine or what? The first step we must take in order to board the ship of Hussein is one of honesty, one of purity, one of sincerity. And the starting point is prayer. But Ayatul al-Bahjah, as he leaves this gathering, he says, and he's heard murmuring this verse of the Holy Quran. Surah Ankabut, verse 69. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا. And though for those who strive in us, لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلُنَا. We shall surely guide them in our ways. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And God is indeed with the virtuous. I ask, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us in His ways? Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. He calls us, he calls us, he calls us, he calls us, and we go, not today, not today, not today, not today. I don't want it, I don't want it. We can't say he never called. This prayer has the ability to defeat this ego of mine. 30 years, 50 years, whatever, I've spent all this time. Ya Allah, uqsimu billah, I swear to you on this night, fi hadhihi al-layla wa fi hadhihi as-sa'a, I'm making a commitment to come your way through the safinat of Hussein alayhi salam. But Ya Allah, I know that I need to come to you in some way that is befitting of all of the sins that I've done, that you need to forgive me for them. So Imam al-Hussein, I will take the privilege of using your words on how maybe I can speak to Allah before I come onto this ship. Please wait for me. Imam al-Hussein stands in Arafah. He raises his hands in dua. My dear and sisters, this is a night, lights off, even close your eyes so you don't feel embarrassed. There is something about the etiquette, and in fact we were in Qom during a course on the 15th of Sha'ban, and there was a dear esteemed Shaykh. He was leading the A'mal of the 15th, and he did something very weird. He said, I want you to turn off the lights. It was pitch black. And he said, I want you to put your hands out in front of you with your wrists, the back of your wrist facing the sky. Why? Act as if you're about to get whipped for the deeds that you've been committing. I swear to you, every single face in that room was weeping in fear. Not of Allah, but of the justice of Allah. Fi hadhihi al-layla, extend your hand in dua. Don't care what the person is thinking next to you. Don't care if they write a message about you saying that you looked weird. This is your opportunity to board the ship of Hussein. Khalas, you take it or you don't. Raise your hands in dua, shut your eyes, put your head down, and use these words of Hussein. He says, however, it is I, oh my God. Ya ilahi al-mu'tarifu bi-dhunubi. However, it is I, O my Lord, who confess my sins. فاغفرها لي, so please forgive them to me. أنا الذي أسأت, it is I who did badly, Ya Allah. It is I who did wrong, Ya Allah. It is I who had evil intention, Ya Allah. It is I who acted impolitely, Ya Allah. It is I who was inadvertent, Ya Allah. It is I who was inattentive. It is I who leaned on something other than you. It is I I who did wrong deliberately, Ya Allah. It is I who promised you. It is I who failed to fulfill it. It is I who breached, and it is I who I confess. We ask Allah for this forgiveness on this night, my dear brothers and sisters. But look at how Imam al-Hussein, in his genius and his wisdom, look at how he communicates. It's as if these words were written for us, for me and you. Because, oh my dear brothers and sisters, when we get onto the ship, I ask you, do we step on with our legs? They're full of sin. Do I climb on using my hands? My hands are full of sin. Do I even look into the ship? My eyes are full of sin. Can my body even get on this ship? It's full of sin. Imam al-Hussein says, by which thing can I now meet you, O my master? Is it by my hearing, by my sight, my tongue, my hand, or my foot? Are all these not your bounties on me? And with all of them I have disobeyed you, O my master. You have absolute claim against me, Ya Allah. My entire body will testify against me. My only ship of salvation is Hussein. For the sake of Hussein, forgive this lowly, sinful servant of yours. Ya Allah, in the same way that Hussein talks about his body, his eyes, his ears, his everything. The irony, Ya Allah, that I'm not covering with this very body that you gave me. And I'm sorry, I know I find it difficult, but I want to come towards you in a state of purity that is Zainabi. And I raise my hand in dua on this night. Ya Allah, make this transition easy for me. Make it possible that when I wear this beautiful garment that Zainab takes me towards you, that my family support me with it, and I never ever look back and I feel tranquility like never before. We think about the covering of our body, just like Hussein even did before he left the tents to face the enemy. Hussein alayhi salam knew his time was up. So he goes into the tent and he carefully picks his clothing. First he calls for Imam al-Sajjad. Imam al-Sajjad so unwell at this point. He gives his bequest to him, including revealing the greatest name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the heritage of the Prophet. Look at the focus on Tawheed. Finally, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he would look around and he would see his young men and friends had been martyred. He prepared himself to face the enemy. Hussein alone in Karbala, he would call out this phrase: هل من ذاب عن حرم رسول الله? Is there anyone to defend the sanctity of Rasulullah? هل من موحد يخاف الله فينا? Is there a believer who fears Allah by supporting us? هل من مغيث يرجو الله في إغاثتنا? Is there a helper seeking Allah by helping us? The women would hear the call of this tent. They know this is the time where Hussein will leave the tents and his wada comes. Imam Sajjad gets up. He leans on a walking stick. He drags a sword. He was so ill. When Imam al-Hussein sees him, he calls out to Kulthum and says, احبسيه لألا تخلو الأرض من نسل آل محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Stop him so that this earth is not emptied of the progeny of Muhammad. Peace and blessings of Allah be on him and his family. And then Hussein says, bring me a garment which would not be desired by anyone. Why, Imam? Why are you so worried about what you're going to wear? Yani, you're going into battle, just go into battle. He says, I shall wear it under my clothes so that the enemy do not plunder my body. They bring him a pair of shorts, he rejects it, he says this is the garment of the disgraced. Instead he would take an old garment, he would make holes in it before putting it under his clothes. But oh mu'mineen, even when Hussein, his life is over, the enemies will still go to the body of the grandson of Rasulullah and take these clothes. Before the Imam went out, he had a final request. He would say, bring me my youngest baby, Ali al-Asghar. Tell me any parent that leaves home for a trip and they don't see their youngest baby and hold them to their chest and kiss their forehead over and over and over again and they don't want to say goodbye. Tonight is not the masa'ib of Ali al-Asghar. But tonight I will mention another young Tawheedi soldier of Allah that we sometimes forget. After Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam had fought and eventually was coming to the end of his life, I wonder if Imam al-Hassan had this planned. Imam al-Hassan? Yes, Imam al-Hassan. Imam al-Hassan by this point has already given Qasim. Hussein's now in his last moments, literally last moments in the land of Karbala. And a young 11-year-old boy comes running from the tents. Abdullah, the son of Hassan, the grandson of the Prophet. My dear brothers and sisters, if you have an 11-year-old boy, or if you've ever seen an 11-year-old boy, keep that picture in your head. They've not yet matured. They're still very weak. And I particularly want you to pay attention to one part about an 11-year-old boy, and that is how thin their arms are still. Abdullah would see Hussein lying alone in the battlefield of Karbala. He would see that the enemies now surround his uncle Hussein. Perhaps an inner call of Tawheed comes through Abdullah. He runs towards his uncle. Zainab tries to stop him. He manages to get away from her. He rushes to his uncle Hussein, a man by the name of Bahar. He was about to kill Hussein. He takes his sword, he throws it down. Abdullah yells him, Yabn al-Khabith, oh son of the wicked woman, Atridbu anni, are you hitting my uncle? Bahar's sword goes through the man Abdullah. Abdullah raises his arm to defend himself, but the sword goes through the arm of an 11-year-old child. Hussein hugs him close, perhaps taking the role of his brother Hassan. Ya ibn akhi, oh my nephew, isbir ala ma nazala bik, be patient with what has happened to you. واحتسب في ذلك الخير, and expect blessings from this. فإن الله تعالى يلحقك بآبائك الصالحين. The Exalted will keep you with your ancestors. Oh Imam al-Hassan, another one of your princes die in defending your brother Hussein. A true Husseini in every aspect. Take his arm, he doesn't care, this young boy Abdullah. But oh Hassan, it now starts to make sense. For when you were in your last moments, you would look towards your brother Hussein. Hussein would look at you and he would start crying, worried about the poison going through your body. Ya Hassan. Hassan tells him, no Hussein. Why? La yawmaka yawmak ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day for your day, oh Aba Abdullah. Hence I give you my Qasim, I give you my Abdullah. Hassan, maybe you are waiting for Abdullah to come back to give him that water from the pools of Kawthar. فلا لعنة الله على القوم الكافرين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Just one dua, just one dua. Please raise your hands. Please raise, every single one of you, every single ishq and muhib of Hussein. Raise your hands. في هذه الليلة في هذه الساعة. We said we want to board the ship of salvation. This is a ship of shifa, of Hussein. Therefore we say, Ya Aba Abdillah, Ya Hussein ibn Ali, أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله. Picture yourself in Bain al-Haramain. يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا. Everyone together in this room. إنا توجهنا. This is your opportunity for shafa, huh? إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا. Regardless of my sins, Ya Hussein, please, 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 on this night, regardless of my sins, oh Hussein, إنا توجهنا, I turn towards you. إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا, for this intercession, وتوسلنا, for this tawassul, بك إلى الله, so I can go towards Allah. وقدمناك بين يدي, and within your hands is my حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. Everyone together, Ya Wajihan, Ya Wajihan, عند الله. اللهم ارزقنا زيارة الحسين. اللهم ارزقنا شفاعة الحسين. اللهم ارزقنا خدمة الحسين. مات حسين. يا حسين، يا حسين، يا حسين.